There's a story to be told, a future to behold. There is more to who we are than what they hear. We have love within our soul, fire in our bones. We've got everything it takes to make it here. There's much more within our soil, more than just our oil. We can grow the food to feed the whole world square. Agriculture is the key, there's treasure in the trees. The time is now, the land is green, wealth is here. This is our nation, this is our land. Nigeria is ours, we have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, wealth is here. There are 200 billion dreams, anyone of this is able to begin a spark and change the world. There's innovation everywhere, from Abba to Ife to Kaduna, the land is green, the wealth is here. Yeah, this is our nation, this is our land, yeah. Nigeria is ours, we have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, the wealth is here.
If you take a look around, from the north to south, there are opportunities to make it here. But if all you ever dream is to go overseas, tell me how you'll ever know that wealth is here. Oh, yeah,
This is our nation, this is our land, oh. Nigeria is ours, we have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, the wealth is here. So pass on the baton, pass on the torch, Nigeria is ours, we have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, the wealth is here. Oh yeah. So this is our nation, this is our land. Oh yeah. Nigeria is ours, we have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, wealth is here.
The Business of Agriculture Masterclass is back, and this time it's all about you. We understand how talk can look easy but become daunting with practice, and that is exactly our focus for this year. Agric in Practice. 3 days, 9 sessions, 20 plus speakers, 8 value chains. Join Agric experts from September 27th to 29th, 2022, as they discuss the best practices for maximum results in your agric venture, answer critical questions about the specific challenges you face, and teach you how to tackle those challenges to achieve more profit for your business. What's more amazing? The masterclass is free and virtual, so you can join from wherever you are. All sessions will be streamed live on Facebook and YouTube. Visit www.businessofagriculture.org to register for the Business of Agriculture Masterclass today. This is brought to you by the Private Sector Advisory Group of the UN SDG Fund.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final session for day 1 of the Business of Agriculture Masterclass 2.0, where we will be discussing the practice of crop production and biofortification. My name is Dr. Godwin Natsi, and I will be your moderator for this important session. The crop production value chain is the largest of all value chains in the agri sector, with the bulk of practitioners consisting of smallholder farmers. With the growing concern on malnutrition in Nigeria, more farmers are advised to embrace the practice of cultivating biofortified crops like yellow cassava, yellow maize, orange flesh, sweet potato, and beans biofortified with iron. Others include the high yielding iron rich pear millet and zinc biofortified maize, wheat, and rice. With an estimated 2 million children in Nigeria suffering from severe acute malnutrition, according to UNICEF, the need for biofortification of crops is paramount. In this session, I will be joined by crop production and biofortification experts, and together we will dig deep and even deeper into their wealth of experience and provide you with detailed context on how the best strategies to employ and how to overcome the challenges faced in the crop production and biofortification value chain. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go on a short break now, and when we are back, we'll go deeper into crop production and biofortification value chain in Nigeria. Welcome back. Before we go to the panel discussion, I will give you an overview of the practice of crop production and biofortification. To help you better appreciate the nutrition sector, I will be talking to a panel of experts, and we will discuss these issues much more in detail to rather present to the audience strategies to employ and how to overcome the challenges faced in the crop production and biofortification value chain. On our panel, we have Mr. Anthony Olayinka Titi Lawyer. Mr. Titi Lawyer is the CEO of Eat Agro Nigeria Limited, leading supplier of cabbage to ShopRite in Nigeria, and currently growing cabbage, Indian lemon, yam, ugu, Italy, plantain, and banana. Mr. Anthony, you are welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon. On our next panelist is Mr. Julian Akinremi. Mr. Akinremi, he is an agribusiness value chain specialist who believes food security can become a reality if we leverage technology, modern farming techniques, research, and human capital development to drive economic growth. He is the CEO of 14 farms where the major in post-harvest handling of agri materials. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Mr. Julian to the platform.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Next on the panel is Mr. Zanau Hassan Mikasua. He is an agronomist, an agribusiness consultant, currently engaged with Alluvia Agriculture Nigeria, and working in 10 states with a focus on maize, rice, soybeans, sesame seed, and cowpea. Zanao was a pioneer staff of Afex Commodities Exchange. He has experience working with smallholder farmers across the country to increase yield and enhance their livelihood. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome Mr. Zanao to the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zanao. I welcome all our panelists to the session on the practice of crop production and biofortification. And going forward, I will be asking you specific questions on the best practices in crop production and biofortification to give the audience very useful insights into the value chain. And let me start with Mr. Zanao. So, how has it been in terms of producing crops in Nigeria? What is really happening? What is the problem? We still see a lot of imports coming in. So, what is happening? Can you share with us?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Godwin. Good afternoon, everyone. Basically, what I can say is happening is the fact that uh, despite the huge number of farmers in Nigeria, the biggest challenge we've always had is that we battle with low yield, high cost of production. And this low yield and high cost of production is responsible for high cost of food in the market, which also in turn makes imported food items much more cheaper to import than the one that is grown locally. Now, you also discover that we depend most of the inputs that we use outside fertilizer, every other input from pesticides um, are mostly imported. Tractors are imported. Most of our mechanized equipment are imported. And knowing the current economic situation now, anything that is dependent on dollar will definitely increase local costs, except for seeds that basically are mostly breeded here. Um, Virtually majority of components are imported, and so that is responsible. Then the main factor is the fact that we have a large rural farming population who don't have access to agricultural extension support that will enable them increase yield, access to inputs. Now that the cost of inputs is high, they will rather go with low inputs and then have lower yield. And then extension support that is supposed to help them to be able to maximally utilize the inputs to be able to achieve better yield is not there. And then low mechanization. Um, this year, tractor per hectare or per day cost has risen from 40,000 last year to about
Hello?
85,000 per day this year. A hectare that used to be 15,000 is around 35,000 this year. So you will have seen that the cost of mechanization is also going up. And so we depend largely on manual labor. And manual labor, apart from giving you lower plant population, increases your cost of production. And then at the end, you have lower yield compared to international average in other developed countries. That definitely will shoot up your cost of production. And then you see that you discover that someone who goes to Thailand and import rice will land at Apapa port lower than what you will have spent to produce 1 ton here in Nigeria. That's some of the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zanao. And let me go to Mr. Titilayo. Can you share your thoughts why Nigeria is still in the business of food imports, despite the fact that we grow most of what we import here? What is really happening in your view?
Well, like Mr. Hassan just pointed out, the cost of production here makes it attractive to import goods that will turn out cheaper than what is being produced here. But what you say is not correct. We're not producing the kind of quantities that we need. Take with wheat, for example. I think we consume about 6 million tons of wheat a year. We produce 90,000. The wheat has to come from somewhere. If we're not producing enough, it has to be imported. We had the same situation with rice. It improved somewhat, but we're still not producing enough rice to meet our consumption. The same thing applies to maize, to soya beans, to chicken, to eggs. So that's why we can't do without importation until we are able to ramp up our production, and that is not an easy task.
That is not an easy task. Julian, Akinremi, what are your thoughts about this? What can I say now? It has become a normal for us to import food to this country when we have the human and the natural resource here. What is happening in your view?
Okay, thank you, sir. I think Mr. Titilayo and Mr. Azan has actually done very well as regards some of the challenges that we have. I'll just add to what they have said. I think another challenge we have here in Nigeria is that basically we still practice more of rain-fed agriculture as against, all year-round agriculture that can be rain-fed and irrigated agriculture. So we find out that we still have crops that are seasonal. Once they go out of season, we wait till the next harvest again. And some of these crops, it will take them 3 to 4 months, like rice. I know that with the exception of some places in the north that have access to irrigation facilities from the Tiga Dam, I know that a number of other parts of the country we still practice rain-fed agriculture. And so that means that this year we plant, and after harvest we wait until the rains are coming again before we plant again, and then it actually limits what we can actually do with these with the lands that we have. Also, we have issues of yield. What is obtainable in other countries is not obtainable here in Nigeria. We find out that for rice, for cassava, what we get per hectare here is completely different to what they get in Canada, in Taiwan, and the likes. And so that means that it's either we are not doing it the right way, and that's where information comes in. It's either we are not doing it the right way, or we are not using the right inputs. Some of these challenges are there. And then we also have the issues of poor infrastructure in our farming communities. You understand? Agriculture is not as beautiful as we want it to be because of lack of infrastructure. When you have to dig your own borehole if you are going to do irrigated farming. That's one. And then you have to create roads, farm roads for yourself to move your goods from your farm to the closest village or to the closest town. You understand? And so some of these issues actually affect, they affect the cost of production. And so I can just do as much as I can do on my farm. If I'm supposed to cultivate, if I have access to 50 hectares and the funding available to me can just do 10 hectares, and I will just do that 10 hectares because I don't have enough money to do all is necessary for me to cultivate that 50 hectares. And then we also have issues with mechanization also. Now, mechanization is supposed to make agriculture beautiful, but if uh, uh, the company that builds the tractor or the plow or the combine harvester, if they build it for crops that are grown in Europe, for instance, and then they ship those equipment here to Nigeria, we have challenges using them. You understand? You can't use a combine that was supposed to harvest uh, uh, what's it called, sweet potatoes or potatoes, for example, or sugar beets. You can't use that to harvest cassava, for instance. Cassava will not grow the same way these other root crops will grow. So we have challenges of some of these equipments are supposed to be tailored, to work very well in our own environment. And some of these are another issue that we face here. Especially here in the south where we have very thick forest. You have to clear. After clearing, you have to do stumping. You have to do plowing and all that. If you don't actually have equipment that are very, very strong and built for this kind of topography, you find that you have a lot of challenges. And if you sum all these things together, and the farmer, the smallholder farmer or the investor has to cater for all these himself, then you should know that it means that he will just do as much as his money can allow him to. And that's a major challenge. So even if we have arable land, we can actually grow more, we can actually cultivate more, but because of all these other challenges, all these hurdles we have to scale, it limits the scope of what individuals can actually do. And that's another place where we are, and that's another point, government support, policies, and all those things. So everything is intertwined. We have a lot of challenges that are still affecting food production, local food production, in order for us to meet the local demand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Julian, for the presentation. And just to reflect a bit back, to feed back and then feed forward. The essence of this masterclass is for us to actually appreciate those challenges, because we know very well that businesses are created where there are challenges. If there are no challenges, businesses can never be created, because everybody has access to those opportunities. So if things are going well, then there will be no business. But once there are challenges, for instance, in transportation, then you think of having a vehicle to drive people, and you create transport system and you make money. Then in the agri space in Nigeria is the same thing, and we expect that people who have joined this conversation this afternoon will be able to listen to us and see what are the opportunities that are there that they can actually look at. So I encourage our audience to see the conversation here in the light of opportunities that they themselves can tap into. So the challenges that are being shared are for you to look at them and see how you can fix these challenges. And I'd like to go to Mr. Zanau. And Zanau, can you share with us? You talked about the issue of low yield. Is it possible for farmers in Nigeria to attain the potential yield? I mean, the yield that these crops are supposed to achieve, because yes, you said, and it's rightly so, that most of our crops, our yields are very low compared to what they are obtained in other geographies. Is it possible? And what can be done to make that happen within the Nigerian space?
Yes, I would say it is possible to increase our yield and to achieve maximum yield as we are seeing in other countries. Even within African countries, in Zimbabwe, for example, maize yield is extremely high. Why? Because they somehow mastered the act of maize production. Here in Nigeria, we are bedeviled by many challenges. Um, One of which is that our soil, the soils we cultivate, we have over-cultivated it over and over, and we've not been able to replenish those soils. Right within Nigeria, we've had farmers who have achieved significant yield. I was sometimes in 2017, 2016 in Kebbi during the Agric show. I saw the farmer that achieved 11 tons of rice, paddy rice production in Kebbi. I have personally interviewed a farmer in Soba in Zaria, close to Zaria, who achieved 8 tons per hectare of maize production. So we have sketches of farmers who are doing extremely well. And then we also have communities within Kaduna who have even moved their average yield to between 3 to 4 tons per hectare. We've also had programs like the Babagona program within Kaduna, Katsina, that are doing up to 6 tons, per hectare. What we've lacked is that we lack a knowledge sharing platform where we can sort of share ideas across farmers, practices that are working across different regions with most of our farmers. Then a major challenge also is the access to fertilizers. Fertilizer, as we know in Nigeria, has become a very important commodity that government had to uh, um, put in place one policy or the other. And these policies have not been consistent over time. They um, for example, recently we've had to battle with we had a presidential initiative for fertilizer, which somehow subsidized fertilizer to 5,000 naira. Over the last 2 years, that initiative has not been effective. The subsidy had been removed, and this year, because of some major components of the fertilizers are also imported, the price of fertilizer average bag is at 20,000 for urea, NPK averagely 15,000 to 18,000. So you will see that even if the farmer knows what to do, he doesn't have the financing to be able to access those fertilizers and apply on his farm. And another issue that I have said earlier has to do with extension service. We all know that extension service is practically dead. The World Bank in the 90s introduced the Agricultural Development Program, where they funded the activities of extension services across the country. That program ended sometimes in early 2000s, and since that program ended, state governments were not able to reactivate or finance agricultural extension to majority of our rural farmers. So you will find gaps in terms of practices when you move from, let's say, farmers in Taraba, observe their practices of maize production, and then come through to Kaduna and see the practice of maize production, you will discover that the farmers in Taraba are lagging behind, while the farmers in Kaduna have advanced in terms of cultivation of maize. You monitor their spacing, you discover that they have better spacing, better plant population than the farmers in Taraba. And then you also notice that farmers within Kaduna have adopted means of utilizing compost or waste compost from their own waste bin and then transfer them to the farm to enhance the soil. This practice is not common across different areas. So you will discover that the knowledge gap is wide, and that is affecting the yield as it relates to the yield component across Nigeria. But we have sketches of success stories. All we needed to do is to scale them up, share those knowledge across, and then see how we can enhance production. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zanau, for those contribution that you've made. I will go back to Yinka. Yinka, I know you are an active participant in the field. I mean, that's what I mean, being an active participant. You are a farmer. How are you addressing the issue of yield gap? How are you able to meet your yield, or you share your experience with us?
Well, agriculture is a science. And if we're having issues with yield, it's probably because, for example, only 6% of the farmers in Nigeria have tertiary education. I think only about 13% have secondary school education. You know, and about, I think about 70% are completely illiterate. So it becomes difficult to acquire and even understand the knowledge to be able to apply science to what you're doing. For you to get a certain yield, an optimal yield, so to say, you would have to adhere to certain agricultural practices, you know, and you have to be disciplined about it. And apart from that, even if you had the best intentions and the best education, if you don't have the materials to be able to deliver the yield you require, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. So that's the thing. I think some of these things have been mentioned today already, you know, where you require good quality inputs, good quality seeds. You require to practice good agricultural practices, and then you'll be able to achieve the yield that is expected. So that's what I have done. In growing cabbage, for example, I spent quite a lot of money training farmers in the Zaria area. I think we trained about 32 farmers, you know, and we were able to retain 26 who now grew the cabbage. But what I also did was, you know, rather than employ people and pay them a salary or whatever, apart from that, I ensured that everyone got a percentage of the yield. So you know that for every cabbage you harvest, you get a certain percentage. And that's motivation, apart from the science, you know, to be able to achieve the yield you desire. So that's what I have practiced. And if people are not achieving, like Mr. Hassan was talking about certain crops earlier on in Taraba, in Kaduna, you know, the farmers in Met, you know, and all of that. Those farmers that were able to achieve good yields were able to do so because they adhered to certain practices, you know, and they were also able to get good quality inputs. That's the only way. The agriculture has to be approached as a science. It is a science.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yinka. And let me go to Akinremi and to try to find out from you. One of the key ingredients that helps farmers to meet their targets in terms of yield has to do with inputs. Now, we have seen how the cost of inputs have gone up so high. How are you able to address this? And what should we, how can we address this, basically? How are farmers coping?
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Um, Basically, I think Mr. Azan mentioned one or two things that I've always advised people to do, and we have actually practiced it, and you know, it's actually working. Necessity is the mother of invention. That's what people say. And then we started we the issue of climate change actually has a little to do with agricultural pollution. And some of those things we regard as agricultural waste can actually be recycled and used on the farm as fertilizer. And since we started out majorly with plantain and banana, and what we found out is that some of the plantain and banana waste, we can actually reuse them on our farms, if we just do one or two things to them, So that was actually how we started out. You understand? And then I know that a lot of other people are beginning to toe that path now, just like Mr. Hassan mentioned earlier. So we are beginning to see that the waste from poultry, waste from cattle and the likes, and then even waste from crops that we have actually harvested, we can actually recycle them, process them, and go back to the farm and use them. And that has been a line of strength for us. And I know that a number of people are beginning to do that part. We know that before now, I had somewhere we used to get poultry waste from, but now they sell it. they no longer give it out for free any longer, because they now understand that, it has value. And if you go to some places where they would normally not have what they would do with their waste, their poultry waste, they're already doing something with it. And so I believe that maybe a lot of farmers may not be doing that part yet, but a number of farmers are beginning to look at things from that direction. And then we have these organic fertilizers that are coming out, liquid organic fertilizers that can be mixed with water. We are planning to use some of them currently now. I'm still discussing with some of the suppliers that will be supplying us. I don't want to mention the name of these fertilizers so that I will not be crossing lines. But we're actually working on using these ones. We have actually seen them test it on what do they call it? A test. There's this name we call it.
As a pilot.
As a pilot, yeah. So we've seen it on a small plot of land. We've seen it work. Now we want to. We had the opportunity of growing 600 fruit trees, seedlings, recently, like 3 weeks ago, and we are actually going to be using some of these liquid fertilizers, liquid herbicides, and liquid insecticides all through. They're a little bit cheaper. They are easier to use. It's actually easy for you to apply liquid manure, liquid fertilizer using motorized sprayers, as against, having a lot of laborers go around the farm and try to dig around the soil and apply the granules. It's less technical than actually applying the other ones. So apart from towing the part of using farm waste, we have also towed the part of using these alternatives that are all over the place now. We've seen them use them on pilot plots, and then we are trying to use them on a larger scale now. So I believe that if all other farmers, and they are fairly affordable, I believe that if all other farmers can also try to try this with their crops, I'm certain that they will begin to see the kind of results that we are getting. Basically, we don't do rice like they do in the north, but for the type of crops that we do here, we've tried them on pilot plots, and they've worked out. Now we are going to the field to see how it will work out. And I'm certain that before these people actually brought it to Nigeria, they've tested it in other places, and it has worked. Probably with a little addition and subtraction here and there, be able to get the result that we want. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Julian, for that. And yes, we have looked at some of the challenges in crop production. And I would like to ask and be frank, and I need your frank answers to this. How profitable is it for someone to go into crop production? How profitable is the business? Maybe I start with Mr. Zanao.
Okay, basically, I think this is an ongoing discussion about the profitability of crop production, especially in Nigeria. Sometime in the early 2000s, when Notori company was starting, the MD of Notori was giving a scenario and saying that a university graduate with access to 5 hectare land can comfortably make enough money that he can't make when he is engaged or employed by government or any private sector. I somehow agree with him, even though there are lots of challenges that 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 the Nigerian agricultural system is bedeviled with. One of which is high risks, and this high risk factor is what is even chasing away the banks from looking into it. Now, this year, majority of farmers who cultivated rice across the River Benue Valley and some across the Hadej Jamare River Basin areas have had to battle with extreme flood, which have completely eroded all the investments that has been done in rice production. That kind of risk alone is challenging. Whatever you have invested, if there is no insurance for you to fall back to be able to recoup, it's a very big issue, which brings us to the issue of precision agriculture. We have information services in the country. How available are those information to the point that it gets down to you as a farmer to be able to take note and to be able to know what to do, areas to avoid this kind of catastrophic damages to cropping system. Now, another factor is, as we have explained, is access to finance. Will I be able to access the requisite funding for me to get the right inputs, right machineries that I will require to be able to cultivate my 5 hectares uh, in such a manner that it will be profitable? That is an issue. The type of financing that is available via the central bank, where you are mandated to get a loan just for 1 hectare, to cultivate 1 hectare, maybe of maize or of rice, will not will not will not help us. This is a very big challenge. This is a very big issue. Financing, it's a very big issue. But generally, crop production is profitable if you know your risks and you are able to know how to mitigate your risks. You are not going into it blindly. And then another very important factor is that experience is very instrumental. Most people want to go into farming today and start being profitable today. It's practically impossible. Why? Because first, you will also need to understand the terrain, the soil, some unexpected eventualities you never expected. You have to practice it to be able to have that understanding that this challenge exists within those localities or within the area or even on the farm where you are. So as you uncover those challenges, you are able to tackle it. It gives you some level of experience that helps you to be able to know how best to be able to deploy whatever technology, techniques for you to be able to achieve the better result, for you to be profitable at the end. Yes. So with the right financing, with the right mitigating risk factor mitigating techniques, I think that it's possible to be profitable and to live with the earnings you make for your crop farms. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for those thoughts. Let me go to um, Yinka and to share, have your thoughts on the profitability of crop production. I know you are doing this for a living. You have a lot of experience in producing cabbage for exports and even, and I mean, for the supplies to ShopRite and several shops. What are the opportunities there and how profitable are they for young people, women to go into this space?
Mr. Hassan is making this very easy for us because it's covering quite a few areas. Like he said, you can't go into agriculture and think that you just make money overnight, or you won't encounter very serious challenges. And we've encountered those. We continue to encounter them. But like I said earlier, if you approach this as a science and you prepare properly for what you're getting yourself into, you could be, after a while, profitable. But unfortunately, climate change is a major issue. Now the thing is, you need to select carefully where it is you want to do whatever you're doing. And even when you do so, like I said, because of climate change, you never know what's going to happen next year, or what's going to happen the next rainy season, or the next Harmattan, or whatever. Which is where insurance will come in. If also your source of funding is too expensive, it becomes more difficult for you to be able to turn a profit. When I say your source of funding being too expensive, you can't borrow money from a Nigerian bank to fund agriculture. At those high interest rates. If anything just goes wrong, you're in serious trouble. So it's not. It will be deceitful of us to make people believe that we're not producing enough. Okay, let's all start producing. So we stop importation. You have to be careful and do your homework before you embark on an agri project. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, because why I'm asking some of these questions is because I have a young man here in Oyo State. He is into cassava production, and he's doing quite well. And he flies business class, and he lives well. He's a young man. I think he's in his 50s now. And he tells me that agriculture is cool, you know. So that's why I want to have a feel from members of the panel and to actually also listen to you on which of the value chains that young people can actually tap into. Yes, we know that agriculture is not like what's it called? You need some patience actually, but then I think it is also very profitable because people are making a living from it and all that. Let me ask Julian your thoughts on this and how we can change our crop production system.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think Mr. Hassan and Mr. Olayinka have actually touched some points as how as regards the profitability of agriculture. And I'll also be coming from another angle. I would say that agriculture uh, is not this platform for you to get quick money, but agriculture is as profitable as you have chosen to be consistent. I believe that one of the person you just spoke of who is into cassava processing, I believe one of the major reasons why uh, he can say agriculture is profitable is because he has been doing whatever it is he's doing consistently. We have young people who want to go into agriculture or agribusiness and they just want to do 1 year, make some money and run away. But if you are consistent, I used to have one of my bosses while I was in the north who grew tomatoes. And, the year they grew tomatoes the first time, a basket of tomatoes was going for as low as 400 naira. Now, the cost of hiring laborers to even come and harvest the tomatoes on the farm is more than 400 naira. I'm talking of like 5, 6 years ago. So just imagine somebody who invested a lot of money in tomatoes and then a basket is going for 400 naira, and then you are like, well, agric is not profitable, I'm not doing again. But the next year, a basket was going for 4,000 naira. The next year, a basket was going for 7,000 naira, back to 3,000. So I believe that agriculture is just as profitable as you can be consistent. You have to take it as a business. The man that sells shoe in Aba will not just sell this year and not sell next year again. He continues to sell every year. You know, last year, around this time last year, a ton of cassava was going for between 60 to 75,000 naira. It's currently going for between 8 to 12,000 naira or 8 to 15,000 naira, depending on the type of variety it is you have to sell. So if last year you made millions from it, and this year, because of the glut, the price goes down, next year something else is going to come out. So agriculture is just as profitable as you can be consistent and as you can be informed, like Mr. Hassan said. There are a lot of information that you will get. Value chain, you need to understand how the value chain works, and then you need to have access to extension services, advisory services, advice from extension service agents. These people would actually point you in the right direction, so that if you know that last year a lot of people sold cassava stems, because a lot of people, when they saw that cassava is going for 60,000 naira, everybody said, there's money in cassava, let's go and plant. And I told people last year, I said, when you be harvesting your cassava, the price will not be the same thing. I can assure you of that one. And it's exactly that now. Like 2 months ago, a ton of cassava was still 20 something thousand. Now it has dropped. And a lot of people are looking for ways not to harvest their cassava. So I think agriculture is just as profitable as you can understand, the business aspect of it. You need to understand the metrics. There was a year palm oil was going for as much as 26,000 naira for 25 kg, and people wanted to go into palm oil production. And the next year it dropped to, I think, 11,000, and people were scared. The same thing for rice. I know that before the ban on importation of rice and all that few years ago, a bag of paddy was sold for as low as 6,000 something, and during COVID, a bag of paddy was sold for as high as 20,000. And I know that the price of paddy is still between 15 to 20 something thousand currently. So you need to agriculture is just as profitable as you can actually understand the business aspect of it. You need to understand what gives and what takes, and you have to be consistent over time. You have to be consistent. So, and then you have to know how to do the minus and the addition. If you go to somebody that sells electronics in Alaba, if I come to buy electronics, you probably sell can sell to me for 70,000. Another person comes, he sells 65,000. Another person comes, he sells 80,000, and he knows how to add and subtract. And I believe that agriculture is just as profitable as you can just as you come from the science side, you also have to understand the business side. So if you are growing your crops, you need to understand the science. But if you are going to make money from agriculture, you need to see it as a business. You understand? So once you understand that agric is a business and that business needs consistency, then you'll be able to make money from agric. A lot of people still make money from agric, and if people still make money from agric, then that means that young people can actually come into agriculture and make money. But it's not something that you do and you get money at the tap of your fingers. It doesn't work that way in agriculture. The first year things may not go. There are a lot of factors that you can't control. Just like Mr. Olayinka said, climate change. You can't determine how the rainfall will be next year. You can't say this is what flooding can happen. A lot of things like that they are beyond your control. But then you need to come into agriculture thinking of business, not just thinking of a get rich quick pathway that you can just come make money and run away. It doesn't work that way. So I believe that agriculture is just as profitable as you are willing to put in your time and your effort. Yeah, Mr. Lainka said something. He said he had to train 32 people to grow for him, and he had to partner with them. Like this community system where they grow, they also make money. It's a win-win thing for them. If you don't see that, and that's the business aspect of agriculture, because those farmers now, they are not just growing to sell back to him. They also know that apart from the off-taker system is profitable to them, and that is business. So once you also come into agriculture and then you come with this business idea, how do I tailor my farming system or my business system or my production system to ensure that I make money. Once you do it that way, you find out that with time, if you may not make money initially, you may not make money at the go, but with consistency, you begin to make money. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I must take these few seconds to appreciate the members of this panel for their frankness, from Mr. Zanau, Olayinka, and Julian. I think it has been a very frank discussion, and I'm sure that our listeners out there are also taking notes of some of these issues that you have raised here. Yes, agriculture is profitable, but then it must be approached with a business mindset. That is when you can make the most out of it. And it is not a gamble. You are not gambling in here that you want to hit a jackpot. So that one needs to have that resilience to go into the agricultural space. Another thing that I think was emphasized, apart from several of the points that you raised, is the issue of resilience. You have to be resilient in order to actually make the most out of agriculture. So those are some of the things I have picked from the conversation, in addition to some of the things mentioned by Mr. Zanau when he talked about extension system, when he talked about inputs, but again, the kind of model that Mr. Olayinka used in the North in order to grow his products and be able to supply. Those are some of the things that people that want to go into agriculture, you can take some time, study, and see what kind of model that you want to use to approach agriculture. We have spent, I think, more than an hour on this conversation on crop production. I'd like us to switch briefly to another related topic, which has to do with biofortification. And the estimates that we see are not very good estimates in terms of malnutrition. let me start with Mr. Olainka. Why should we endorse biofortification?
Well, we should endorse it because it will provide a healthy option for our children, for the population. But even in endorsing it, we need to be careful because everything has its pros and cons. Uh, we need to get our children healthy, but we also need to be careful because if you feed children with too much of bio-fortified crops, it weakens their immune system. It limits their physical activity. So yes, we should endorse it because it provide the nutrients that the children need. But then as we do that, we must not do it excessively, and we also must be careful what methods we use to fortify these crops. We should not be going into genetic modification. We should be going into natural fortification, with organic by organic means. So that's what I would say. Yes, of course it's a valuable solution to the malnutrition problem, but we must not take it too far.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zanau. Biofortification. Why should we take that route?
Yes, so biofortification has been with us for a very long time, possibly because we've not given it attention. Um, that's why. In Nigeria, we've had, in maize, for example, we have the what we call the quality protein maize (QPM), which has been part of our the seeds that is being marketed by most seed companies. Um, one of which Premier Seed, for example, one of their varieties, Oba 98, Oba Tampa, and some other series of quality protein maize varieties in the market. Now, you will have also noticed that apart from crops, due to the challenges associated with the lack of some of these nutrients in our food system, there had been there had been deliberate effort to ensure that nutrients like the vitamin A is included in sugar and in wheat flours products as a matter of policy. Also, iodine in salt, in order to prevent things that have to do with goiter, absence of iodine. And so, in order to curtail that, a number of some of these crops have been introduced into our food system, from maize to rice to cassava to orange flesh potato, and some even vegetables as well, in order to enhance the nutrient level of our citizens, both adults and even children as well. So I think that that is an important step that is being taken in order to enhance nutrition, knowing the fact that in Africa, you we don't have we have most communities who don't consume what is called balanced or nutrition balanced food, or what in the normal sense we call balanced diet. If you don't have good access to good quality protein, if you have a quality protein means that you've cultivated, that have higher lysine and higher tryptophan. It helps you to be able to balance up that. So I think that it's a good thing. Um, uh, what needed to be done is how else do we promote that to an extent that it has a pride of place within the food system in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. And I'll go to Akiremi briefly. Akiremi, could you share your thoughts on the accessibility of some of these biofortified crops? Like, for instance, we talk about vitamin A maize, we talk about vitamin A cassava, and then, of course, the quality protein maize that Zanao talked about. How accessible are these uh, crops for people to consume, for the population?
Okay, thank you, sir. I think people are beginning to understand, just like Mr. Hassan rightly mentioned, people are beginning to understand the importance of some of these biofortified crops, as against, you know, um, other types of crops. Let me just put it that way. And a lot of people now, for example, I'll come from the angle of, just to be direct as regards your question, I'll come from the angle of yellow Gary. Let me come down to the southwest, yellow Gary. Now, sometimes ago I was approached by someone from outside the country who actually wanted to export yellow Gary. They wanted me to send yellow Gary to them. Now, they already had issues with this yellow Gary, and the issue they had is that uh, before the yellow Gary gets there, it starts growing mold, because of the way we process yellow Gary, naturally. So having an alternative yellow Gary that doesn't have palm oil content in it is actually a plus for them. You understand?
Yeah.
And not only does this yellow Gary comes out yellow, you understand? It's fortified with vitamin A, which makes it, it helps solve one challenge that a lot of us cannot actually see, and that is what the professionals would call eating hunger. A lot of us eat, but we don't actually satisfy all the nutritious requirements, nutrient requirements in our body. So I believe that a lot of people are beginning to see the importance of these biofortified crops, and people are beginning to order for it. You have people who want to buy potato flour. They are asking you to send orange fleshed potato variety flour to them. You understand? And you see people who want to buy yellow Gary. They are going for the vitamin A. That's the TME variety, 419 variety. They are going for it as against the, of course, it has its pros and cons. It has one issue there, one issue here. Some people would say because of the color, you understand. Maybe they don't like the way the color comes out, or maybe it's not as yellow as they want it to be, or it's too yellow, or whatever. But people are beginning to come and see the importance of some of these things, because as against just consuming food like we used to consume food in the past, now people are beginning to, there's a knowledge. There are people who tell you that they can't eat this kind of food, they can't eat that kind of food. These biofortified varieties actually are coming as healthy alternatives for these people. People who cannot eat one type of food in the past, they now have healthy alternatives, that are not that are modified using agronomy. Most of these biofortified crops actually come to be when you crossbreed other crops that have the desirable traits that you want. You crossbreed them with some other ones, and everything is done using agronomy. It's not something that is done in the lab. As long as it's not something that is done in the lab, people want it. And a lot of people that, I think what is happening now is that people order for these products based on the information that is available to them. So the more people are informed about, the benefits they stand to get from consuming these products, the more people come to ask for it. So I think the accessibility, it's growing daily because people are beginning to see it from the way it actually, from the way they're actually supposed to see it. We'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian. Thank you so much, Lainka and Zanau, for your thoughts on this subject. And I know that, just as we said, too much of everything is not good. Even if you eat too much of meat, you have problems. No matter how good biofortified crops are, if you consume them too much, you might have issues. And I think that's what Olainka was saying. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we will take a break. And then when we come back, we will have a feedback from the audience. We take some questions and then we continue with the conversation. Thank you so much for that. Let's go online and see if we have any question or comment from the audience before we continue with the conversation. So we have a Doja John, and the question is, please, is biofortified crops the same as genetically modified crops? Can I throw this question to Mr. Zanau? I know they are not the same, but Zanau, can you speak?
Okay. Yes. So they are not the same. And as you will also know, that Nigeria has a law in place for to check uh, genetically modified foods coming into the country. And so biofortified are not genetically modified food crops in simple terms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zanau. Any other question online before we continue? Chizoba Ekwen, I have a loose 300,000 naira, and I want to go into crop production. What do I do? Let's go to Olainka. I think he has very good experience to advise us. 300,000. What should I grow?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me to answer that question. Well, I think rather than go into crop production with 300,000 naira, agriculture is not just about production. You can look for something that you use some of that money to buy and you add value to it on a very small scale. It could be spices, something, but with your 300,000, if you think you want to go into, you may not like the outcome. I think it's probably better to choose something that you can add value to on a small scale.
Zanau, you have anything to add on top of that?
Oh, well, if she is really interested in farming or in crop production, I think she can do a small vegetable garden, whether to grow tomato in about, let's say, 500 square meters, or she can do cabbage and make sure that she gets our co-panelists here to buy up the cabbage and supply to ShopRite. Well, I think vegetables have proven to be high value crops within smaller space. You can get what a maize farmer can't get within that kind of same space. If the person is really passionate and will devote the time to be able to manage, right? But also with also the mind that your first year is a learning year, so that whatever challenge that comes with it, you are able to absorb that, and then as an experience that you will be able to build on in the next season. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a very important message. If you want to go into production, then you have to create some time to be on the field. It's very important. If you don't have the time, then I think what Olainka advice is the route you should take. You should think of value addition or even aggregation. Could be one area that you could do and see how prices appreciate, and then you sell. But if you are putting your money in agriculture, in production, please create time to be on the field. Next question, please. We are Onyinye Njoku is asking, I am a banker and don't have time, but I have cash in hand and don't want to get banked. What can I do? Can we go to Akiremi? He's a banker. He doesn't have time. What can he do?
Okay, I think the kind of money you can make from agric is not the type you make in the bank. So I think
or maybe
once you
stock
come
market.
exactly,
Or maybe stock market,
so
yeah.
so I would say that you have money, you can actually invest in agriculture, but you actually have to understand uh, uh, the metrics if you're actually going to be investing in agriculture. I'll go with what Mr. Lainka said earlier. You understand? It doesn't matter how much you have, even if it's very much. Since you don't have time, it's actually better for you to leave the crop production aspect. It's a value chain. You understand? So you can actually plug in into the buying and the reselling part of the value chain, or the buying and the value addition part of the value chain. Because the person that is actually doing crop production needs to have time. For example, if you're actually growing vegetables or you are growing fruits, you need to have time, you need to be on the farm. And when you harvest, if you harvest, for example, if you harvest plantain, for example, or bananas, you can't keep it for 2 months after harvesting. You have to sell it. You understand? So you need to have time for that one. You understand? But if you as someone that actually has money, you could set up a small processing plant where you buy some of these. You can buy rice from Kanu, buy rice from Sokoto or Jigawa. You bring it to Lagos, and then you rebag and sell. You brand, you sell. People buy from you. Also do that for cassava, maybe gari or whatever. You don't actually have to go in full time into the crop production or even the initial stages of the processing. You could just be on the tip or on the other end where you get it, you add, you package it, make it look neater, and then you resell. And that is something you can do. Probably if you are based in Lagos or Abuja, something you can do in the city there. You're coming back from work, you go to your processing facility, look at what they are doing, and then you go home. You don't have to travel miles to the farm to go and see what they are doing, or travel down miles to the processing, the major processing facility that is still close to the farm to see what they are doing. So it's two ways, and then you can buy the one that is completely processed and packaged. All you just need to do is, you put your own branding on it. You have go into business agreement with them. They take all the risks for you. and then they give you the finished product, you brand it, and then you supply to supermarket and superstores. So there are a lot of things that you can actually do with your money and you would not lose it. But the most important thing is that you need to come into it looking at it as a business. So first of all, you need to define what your market is. You need to understand who your customers are, and then you need to plan how to break into your market, create out a niche for yourself and make sure that you keep your customers within that niche. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I think the key here is that if you want to go into crop production, there's a lot of room and space for everyone to go into it. But we advise on this panel that it must be someone that has the time, or maybe you employ somebody that will be there for you as a manager to do that for you. So agriculture shouldn't be part-time. So if you want to get the best out of it, don't do it as part-time. You have to be an active participant on the field, especially in crop production. But of course, the demand is there, and there is room for us to increase our yield per hectare, and all that. I'd like to share my experience. Recently, I was in the aggregation part of it. And what I did was, because I have some extra cash, what I did was to buy beans, beans from the north. So during the harvest period, I buy the beans from Bodija market because I stay in Ibadan. And I bought it at 37,000. I think I came in the market a bit late and I sold at 42,000. Not too much gain, but of course it is better than putting the money in the bank. If I had bought much earlier, that would have given me much more profit. So those are some of the things that people that have cash that you don't have much of time, you can actually go into. So let's look at the online space if there's any other question before we continue with the conversation and bring it to a close. Any other? All right. Let me go 1 minute each from Mr. Zanao. What is your take home? I mean, your last comment on this subject, crop production and biofortification, opportunities. What would you want our audience to take back home?
Yes, on biofortification, I would want to see more investment in biofortification processed foods. For example, we in the north we consume a lot of maize flour. I used to sell quality protein maize seeds to farmers, but what I've discovered was that you once you have harvested, you take it to the market. You can't differentiate it from any other maize that is in the market. So, but if I had someone who processes maize into flour for semo or for tuwo and is really interested in quality protein maize, you see that would generate a market for such kind of maize, and it will be properly labeled quality protein maize flour, right? So I hope to see those kind of investment and those kind of thinking. I have a friend who is doing orange flesh flour, and she's doing it, and she's thinking of also accessing the export market with that. So those kind of investments, so that we can open up the space for biofortified foods farmers to be able to produce and get specific market target for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me move to Mr. Olainka. Your final comments to the audience, please.
Thank you, Doctor. What I would say is, for almost every problem bedeviling crop production in Nigeria, there's an opportunity. Every problem you see is an opportunity for you to invest, and make money. I took some notes down here. Like for inadequate financing, some of those people who said they had money and all that, look for something you can buy into and invest in it. For poor transportation systems, look for something you can, buy a truck or whatever, do haulage of produce. For education, do training. For farming system techniques, training as well. For pests and diseases, do inputs. For climate change, the insurance companies can, provide insurance. Technology, one can invest in technology, to better inform farmers of what the weather is going to be like and all of that. For market, and something which is not quite, which I think we probably require, is either a marketing board or an organization or organizations similar to that. Because that would solve the problem of farmers not getting fair prices for their goods. It will solve the problem of them not being informed, as to what they can sell their goods for. It will solve the problems of middlemen taking advantage of them. So yeah, I think that's what the major thing I want to be taken away from this is, for every problem presents an investment opportunity.
Thank you so much. And then Akinremi, your last words.
Thank you, sir. Yes, from my own end, I would say that the broad topic for these conversations centers around business. So I would say that anybody that is looking at crop production, biofortification, if you want to cultivate biofortified crops, or you want to cultivate the general crops, either you want to do crop cultivation or cultivation of biofortified crops, I would want you to go into whatever it is you want to do that has to do with agriculture. Whatever area of the value chain you intend to concentrate on, I want you to come into it looking at it from the perspective of business. It's very, very important, so you make sure that you understand what the metrics are. You make sure that you know what your competitors are. You understand what the policies are. You understand what the challenges are. You build your solution around those challenges, looking at it as a business. Just like Mr. Laika just said, that for every challenge for every challenge I will mention, there's an opportunity. And so when you are looking at addressing that challenge and providing solutions, you should come into it looking at it like a businessman would do. You should have a 6-month plan, 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 3-year plan. You should are building contingencies into your plan so that if there are challenges, you know how to bounce back, and so on and so forth. If you need to collaborate, if you need to partner, if you need to rebrand, whatever it is you need to do, make sure that you are not just coming into crop production or cultivation of biofortified crops because they said it is good, or because somebody told you there's money in it, or because you are happy, or because you have a lot of money. You are coming into it because you want to create solutions, and then you also want to make profit. You want to make money by putting in your money and putting in your solutions. So I want us to come into the business of agriculture, coming into it with a business mindset. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Julian. Thank you so much, Mr. Zanao and also Lainka, appreciate your time, your contribution, and the conversation. I think it was an excellent conversation. Thank you. We would love to continue, but because of time constraints, we would love to stop at this point. To our audience, thank you for hanging on and listening to this conversation. Please do have a wonderful day, and this is where we are going to draw the curtains for this discussion. Thank you.
There's a story to be told, a future to behold. There is more to who we are than what they hear. We have love within our soul, fire in our bones. We've got everything it takes to make it here. There's much more within our soil, more than just our oil. We can grow the food to feed the whole world square. Agriculture is the key. There's treasure in the trees. The time is now, the land is green, wealth is here. This is our nation, this is our land. Nigeria is ours. We have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, wealth is here. There are 200 billion dreams. Anyone of this is able to begin a spark and change the world. There's innovation everywhere, from Abba to Ife to Kaduna. The land is green, the wealth is here. Yeah, this is our nation, this is our land. Yeah. Nigeria is ours. We have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, the wealth is here.
If you take a look around from the north to south, there are opportunities to make it here. But if all you ever dream is to go overseas, tell me how you'll ever know that wealth is here. Oh, yeah,
This is our nation, this is our land. Oh, Nigeria is ours. We have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, the wealth is here. So pass on the baton, pass on the torch. Nigeria is ours. We have everything we need. If we could only see, the time is now, the land is green, the wealth is here. Oh yeah. So this is our nation, this is our land.